This next question is probably going to help lead into this project development, but do you assist with negotiations with the utility to establish connection? And just can you tell us about the timeline of contacting you and then getting to payment and construction?
Yeah, that's the perfect segue into this slide. Really quick, I'll touch on the negotiation with the utility and I'll say, yes, a lot of our work is building awareness of agrivoltaics. So yeah, we can and have talked to utilities to help understand the need and the grid connectivity. That's something that we do on a as needed basis, and we have relationships with some of the big utilities that we work in right now. But I'm going to give an example of our most recent project, which is in New York with this family who owns sheep. They have about 78 acres of land, and they came to us because they heard of another solar project that was going on in their area, and they were really interested in how they could benefit. And when they heard that we do solar that would still let them like have an environment for their sheep, they were very interested. And so what that timeline looks like is they reached out to us. We specifically Yorit assessed their land. We kind of looked, okay, what kind of soil do they have? Like, what's the topography? What's the grid capacity look like? Is it going to be able to connect to the grid? We like checked all of our boxes to make sure that it worked. That process took a couple of months. It took conversations back and forth with the landowner to understand everything and make sure we were on the same page. And then once we do that, or actually while we're doing that, we sign a letter of intent with landowners. So that is a non-binding agreement that just says like, hey, we're interested in exploring this opportunity with Okovate. It says that we're the only solar developer that you'll work with while that LOI is active. And then it gives us enough information to know like, okay, you're interested enough for us to put time and resources into this project. And from there, we execute on a lease. And so that's when we figure out, okay, how much is this actually going to benefit you guys? This farm, we're developing on 15, 16 acres of land, and they are going to be getting a lease payment of $1,850 per year per acre, and then an additional $250 per year per acre for their sheep grazing services. And I want to emphasize this number varies a lot depending on market, geography, and even like system type, but that's the kind of incentive that this specific landowner is getting. And so we're very close on executing on the lease, which will then trigger some of the early development, like the development permit. So we'll do permits with the utility and the county, and we'll take all the steps necessary for the project to get to what we call NTP, or notice to proceed. That means that it's like ready to be built and everything has been approved and it's just time to break ground. That process, once we're breaking ground, takes anywhere from like 6 to 9 months, depending on seasons, weather, system size, even like remoteness of the site. Like, do you have to bring things in from far away, or is it a little more accessible? And then once the project is done being constructed, that's when the lease payment is triggered. And so for that 20 to 30 year time period, that's when they'll get that annual lease payment. And then in addition, they'll be paid for their services of the sheep grazing the system. So they're essentially being paid for their sheep to eat, and they're doing the vegetation management for the solar system. And I also want to emphasize that with this structure, the landowner isn't paying anything. They're basically like the landlords of the solar system. And so none of the upfront costs fall on them. They just have to sign on to agree that their land can be used for this. And then the rest is done by Okovate and our partners. So going into the more specifics with that question, yeah, so the typical system size, we try to work with at least 10 acres. And we have done projects in Texas. We have a couple folks that we're talking to now. Texas doesn't have a community solar market, but it does have a lot of land and not a lot of regulation. So it's easy to get creative there with different system structures. And that's definitely an area we're willing to look into.